The outcomes of my clients improved. That is what Lauren Ross shared today. She started her career as a school-based speech-language pathologist, and she shared an office with a Board Certified Behavior Analyst, and she collaborated with that person and was inspired to go back to become a SLP BCBA. And we have just heard that there are less than 500 people who are duly certified as SLPs and BCBAs. Today on the podcast, you are going to learn all about naturalistic interventions and how we can utilize naturalistic interventions for adult clients. Lauren has a business that provides therapeutic consultations for adults of various ages, and she is going to share with us how can we utilize naturalistic interventions, which we talk a lot about here at ABA Speech, and I usually focus on the younger learner. So I was really excited today to talk with Lauren, and she's going to talk with us about how to use a naturalistic intervention path for adult clients. Let's get into this conversation. I'm Rose Griffin, a speech therapist, board certified behavior analyst, and founder of ABA Speech. It wasn't all that long ago that I felt overwhelmed by providing therapy for my autistic students and any students who were not yet speaking. Fast forward through many doubts, tears, research, and courses, and you will see the framework that I use today and share with over 60,000 readers weekly. One that will help you support your students and feel more confident in the process. I created the ABA Speech podcast to give you simple, step-by-step strategies to help you reach all of your students wherever they are on their communication journeys. If you're a speech therapist, BCBA, RBT student, or parent who's looking to help all students develop a way to communicate with the world, you are in the right place, friend. Let's get started. Welcome to the show. We have Lauren Ross with us today. Lauren is also duly certified as a speech therapist in BCBA, so always fun to connect with a fellow unicorn, as we sometimes like to call ourselves. But welcome to the show, Lauren. It's nice to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Rose. I really appreciate it.
And we were talking about how some stats, Nakia Dower just posted that there are about 488 duly certified professionals, I think, in the world or in the United States. And so thank you, Nakia, for keeping tabs on all of that information. It's so important. And I just think that it's amazing that there's that small of amount of people, but I feel like I'm working my way through meeting most people. So it's a nice small group to be a part of, isn't it?
Yes, it's a very unique and small group. And it is surprising because there's so much overlap in the fields that there's only 488.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it was nice to meet you. I think we met on LinkedIn. You had posted an article, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that caught my attention. I really do love LinkedIn. It is social media. Some people think that it's not, but it is a professional form of social media, but it is a nice place to connect with fellow speech therapists and BCBAs if you're not over there. So you are duly certified as a SLP BCBA. And oftentimes people will ask me, what is your journey to certification? Or people are starting to take their classes and they want to know about it. But I talk about my journey a lot. So people are probably bored of that. So tell us a little bit about your journey to being duly certified.
Yes. So I went through speech therapy. Growing up, I stuttered. And my father also, he still stutters to this day. Mm-hmm. And so speech therapy was my favorite part of school. Mm-hmm. At that time, I hated school. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to go. And my mom was like, you'll have speech therapy today. So I think I was 10 when I started saying I wanted to be a speech therapist and went to school for it and went to Old Dominion for grad school and then started practicing in a public school setting. And I was sharing an office with a BCBA. And so we obviously were collaborating and I started to see the outcomes from my clients really improve. And it was just cool to co-treat and collaborate. And after a couple years of him just saying hey, you should go back to school for this. You should go back. I finally enrolled and was certified in 2020. So it was definitely a lot, but I had some great influences and I was very happy to be one of the unicorns now.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. I love hearing everybody's kind of journey into the field. So thank you for sharing that. And I love that your speech therapist was your favorite part of the day. That's so cool to share that. And so that's neat. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
You had posted an article on LinkedIn about one of my favorite topics, which is naturalistic developmental behavioral interventions, or NDBI. I have a membership at the ABA Speech Connection where we offer ASHA CEUs and also ACE CEUs, so speech therapists, BCBAs, and now we're doing RBT courses too. And I did a course last September myself that was 5 hours, all about NDBI and naturalistic interventions and how this is really evidence-based. And I read this big graduate level text and tried to condense it into actionable strategies. So, but for those listeners that haven't taken that course or heard us talk about it on the podcast, because we have done a couple episodes, can you share with us just a definition of what NDBI is exactly?
Yeah. So it's a group of interventions that apply ABA principles in tandem with developmental science. And so shaping, prompting, reinforcement, data collection, all in a natural setting. So where a client is learning the most and where they feel the most comfortable.
Yeah, I love that. And I just did a talk on Friday for this cool organization, the Will Gundy Group. I think they're out of Illinois, I think. And I was talking about NDBI, and some of the research I was talking about was from that literature. And it said, when we have an emotional connection in therapy, that our learners are going to make more progress, or we're going to maximize client outcomes, some kind of research jargon to say the kids are going to do better. But just even from you saying in your own lived experience, right? Like you wanted to go to school on the day you had speech therapy, right? Because you were excited about it. And so I think that is something I've been certified in the field for a while now, that we never really discussed all those things. We obviously have always talked about assent, client directed sessions and things like that. But I do like that this is more of a topic that's in the forefront, that it's not just like, let's sit at the table, let's get all of our work done, and then you can do your reinforcement task. That's like really not how it works, that we really need to embed building a rapport with students. And when we have those emotional connections, that students are going to make more progress. So I know even before we press record, you said you've seen that in your own practice where learners are making more, or your clients are making more progress when you're using more naturalistic interventions.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, just like you said, if you have a connection to something, you're naturally going to want to do something more and feel more involved in it. So it makes sense that our clients are seeing better outcomes when we're in their naturalistic setting, we're in their home, in the group home, or in the work environment. And being able to apply these principles, we see much better outcomes.
Yeah. And I love, for people that were trained a long time ago, we didn't talk about maybe these things so explicitly. So that's why I think it's nice that this line of research is very evidence-based, that we can say. But I still feel like a lot of BCBAs, especially speech therapists that are in my connection, know about NDBI, but a lot of BCBAs still don't know much about NDBI. Like I'll ask in the chat on Zoom if I'm doing a training, like, have you heard of this line of research? Or that's why I like that you posted it, because I do think it's newer, even though I think Laura Schreiben and et al. Had that original article, I think in 2015. But we know that research to practice gap exists. And so
Oh, very much so.
yes.
It's an air gap that we'd love to fill.
Yes. So on LinkedIn, people talk about research. That's why I like it. So why do you think it's important, especially for BCBAs, to learn more and implement NDBI in practice?
I really think it's important because it's what's meaningful for the clients. So it's where they're able to learn, where they're growing. In my practice, we work only with adults. So a lot of NDBI, if not most NDBI research, is pediatric based.
Yeah.
But finding those locations and that meaningful aspect for the clients is key. And at the end of the day, it's one of the 7 dimensions of ABA is generality. Mm-hmm. And so being able to generalize these skills outside of the clinic, outside of just that very closed setting, and put it into play in their home, work, group home settings.
Yeah, I love that. And when I was researching, I think for that NDBI course I did in the membership, was just looking at some of the work, I think from Dr. Sundberg, is saying, we need to have and I realize I'm a school-based SLP 2 days a week. So, and you were school-based, so you understand, like you can't always see a student one-on-one. You can't always do therapy where you want to be doing it. I mean, there's a lot of barriers to instruction. I mean, I have a great job now. I work in my home district, but it's just hard. They say that there's research that says, well, if the therapeutic environment looks a lot like the environment where the student's going to be using the skill, then it's easier to plan for generalization, which is like, that makes a lot of sense, right? So, and you said you work with, I'm excited to learn more about your practice, but I worked with middle school, high school students for 10 years. That was the only age group I was serving for a while. And I really loved just like how functional it was. It was like, okay, let's do like, let's do this like weightlifting and speech therapy. And then you're going to generalize that to your personal fitness class at high school. And then I'm going to observe to see how you're doing with that. And are you socializing or doing in a group? And it's so functional. I find working with older students, like with little kids, well, this is who I am. You got to have all your stuff and there's lots of mini objects and that's great too. Don't get me wrong. I like little kids, but with older people, you're like, this is your environment for work, right?
This is your domain. And now
Yeah.
let's come in here and work. And
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in the school, I think my toolkit
Yeah.
was like primarily like all toys and just tons
Yes.
of stuff. My car, I felt like was never clean.
Yes.
So
Lots of
now working with
bags.
adults, it's definitely a lot different. I don't have all the little stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's some joy in that. I mean,
There
sometimes it's
is.
fun to because we serve like 6 or 7 clinics now in Washington State by providing teletherapy. And my husband, we share an office some days, and he would be like, "How many times are you going to sing Wheels on the Bus?" And I'm like, "A lot." Okay, I'm 46, so I'm not going to retire for a long time, but get used to it, buddy. Get used to it. I don't know
You
if that
can
was
start just a frequency tracker.
yes, exactly. Yes, I need a clicker. I do that with my articulation kids. But tell us a little bit about your practice. Like, what's the name of it, and what types of? You said you serve older clients, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I founded Precision Therapy back in 2022, and we provide therapeutic consultation services to adults with disabilities throughout the state of Virginia. So both in person and hybrid.
Mhm.
And therapeutic consultation, it's a little bit different than traditional ABA because it's
Yeah,
not one-to-one with the client. It's
right.
training the caregivers, whether that be a parent, sibling, or group home manager, but
Mm.
training that client-specific caregivers on implementing ABA principles. Um,
Oh, wow.
so they essentially become our RBTs.
Okay, yeah. Oh,
So
interesting. That's cool. How did you get the idea to start that? That's a great idea. I think it's always brave to start a business.
it was definitely a lot of thoughts and prep. I had been at a private practice that was primarily focused on clinic-based instruction as well
Mm.
as school-based instruction. They had about 3 to 5 clients that were doing therapeutic consultation. And
Oh,
when I first started that, I was like, well, this is amazing. It's
yeah.
unique, it's meaningful, and
Mhm.
we're able to serve clients where they are. So applying that NDBI
Yeah.
services with adults. And so in December 2022, I made the leap and started the practice, and it's been growing
Wow.
since, which has been awesome.
Oh, that's neat. So do you think that's state specific, or do you think that Ohio, like, is it funded through insurance or
It's funded through Medicaid. And
Medicaid?
I know
Okay.
each state is a little different with
Yeah.
how it's funded. I know in
Okay.
Virginia, the Department of Justice was kind of how it was funded back in
Hmm.
2016.
Okay.
But I know North Carolina has it as well. I don't know specifically about Ohio.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't heard that term before. So I mean, I like that. It sounds very functional. So I would imagine that you are building great relationships with these people that you're helping to train. So have you come up with your own curriculum, or are you providing general information about ABA, or is it general information paired with very specific to that client's situation and environment?
Do you ever feel alone in your parenting journey? Like no one else understands the unique challenges you're facing raising gifted, spirited, twice exceptional, or highly sensitive kids? You're not alone. I'm Carrie Lingenfelter, former educator, conscious parenting guide, and spiritual seeker. On Heart to Heart Parents podcast, we explore how to bring conscious mindfulness, spirituality, and growth into our parenting. Join me as we dive into guided meditations, affirmations for kids, and tools to help you and your child develop a positive mindset in life's challenges. Let's nurture deeper connections, trust our intuition, and raise conscious, empowered changemakers together. Listen now on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
It's more general paired with specific. So if we get a
Okay.
client that might let's say, they're trying to get a job, or they might
Yeah.
have a maladaptive behavior that's keeping them from going to a day support. We'll get a referral.
Mhm.
And then we start working and building out programs that would be shaped to help them. So if it's processing of, coping strategies, utilizing ACT, and training those caregivers on implementing that, or if it's maladaptive behaviors, looking at de-escalation strategies, having them take data. Data is, I think, the word that I say every day,
Right.
probably 20 times a day.
Right. Yeah.
With getting caregivers collecting data and starting to recognize, hey, these are these antecedent strategies that we can start implementing. So visuals, prompts, the shaping of, hey, this is what we're going to be doing, and to see the meaningful impacts. It really, we're able to see a lot of change. And especially it's awesome when you see a client that might have been having some maladaptive behaviors at the home, unable to go to a day support, and now they're thriving at a day support 5 days a week, and being able to look at like, hey, okay, well, what's the next step? Is it that employment? Are we looking at more independence with living? Even things like cooking skills. There's a lot that can be roped into adult-based services.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat. Okay. So that sounds like you're helping in such a specific way. That's really nice. Yeah. I never really thought about that. Therapeutic consultations. That's great, because I'm sure that you are a source of support for people that you're training. And so do the clients ever also join in on those virtual sessions as well?
Yeah. So they join in on virtual sessions. Majority of our clinicians also go in-home as well.
Oh, okay.
And so getting them to kind of state, hey, this is where I want to be. These are the goals that I want to set for myself. And making sure those align with where the caregiver are, and we can find some middle ground. So it's great to get buy-in, and especially our clients that we get referred to, and looking at those healthy relationships like dating, friendships,
Right.
it's really cool to kind of get a client's input and say, hey, I want to work on finding a girlfriend or finding a partner,
Right.
and building those skills. So
that's great. I love that. That's so neat. So how are you kind of incorporating those naturalistic, because in my course here at ABA Speech Connection, that particular course is more about younger students and really, like, I talk about what an NDBI is, because very specific what qualifies as an NDBI. And then I try to just riff on that topic and say, these are some naturalistic interventions that we can utilize as speech therapists in BCBA. So how are you utilizing some of those naturalistic principles into your work at your clinic?
Yeah. So what we really focus on is, like, we keep going back to what's meaningful for the client. So if it is working at the day support or at the job, especially, for instance, we recently had a client that she was working in a department store style setting, and she was not keeping the pace of restocking and going back through the items as much as her manager had wanted. So a big thing we did was, she loves music, and so we implemented her wearing AirPods during her shift, that she could do that and keep to the beat of the music. And we just had to keep the beats above a certain RPM.
Oh, that's fun.
So finding those interests, those hobbies that the clients like, and implementing those in, putting those visuals and those timers really help in so many ways. So if that's at a home, for even things like showering, or those ADL tasks, having those visuals in really assist in implementing NDBI.
Oh, that's nice, because I know that sometimes I just feel like adult services are really tough. Like, I just feel like parents and caregivers feel like it's just services they just drop off a cliff, is what they describe it as. I've had a lot of people on there, either autistic or, it's an autism family member. So that's nice to be able to troubleshoot those types of things, because I think that's the thing with, like, anybody, like, as a parent to 3 kids, like, at any time, it's just nice to have somebody to talk with about, like, oh, this is hard, or like, this was a success that we had. I think that's really cute about the music and it being faster. So, like, in my family, like, we all like to listen to yacht rock. It's like, which you probably don't even know what that is because you're so young, but it's like really old school music that probably your grandma listened to, but they play it in the summer, and it's like, that would probably not be the right music to listen to for that particular client. Cause it's like, it's quiet and it's calm. It's like Kenny G like, you know what I mean? So that's probably not the right vibe
No,
for the retail.
this client was very actually into like 90s rap.
Oh, same.
So
Okay. Same. I
I
got
have a
Snoop. Snoop is in my home office. That's where I play the harp and I have like my little Snoop is there too. The official Snoop on a stoop. Okay. So I'm tracking because I graduated in 97. So that's okay. That's good.
yeah.
So she had good
So
taste in music is what
she
you're
has
saying.
great taste in music. My 90s rap information is now through the roof because of her.
Yes.
So I
Okay.
appreciate that a ton.
Yes. A history lesson. Oh
But
my gosh. That's fun.
there is such a cliff when you talk about that with adult-based services where,
Yeah.
hey, you finish school and you have
Hmm.
these supports and now what next?
Yeah.
So one thing we really try to do is like connecting with those caregivers and with the clients. It's like, what goals do you want to set? What do you want your day to look like in an ideal
Right.
world? And
Right.
what things can we start to do to build that together?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, when I was working at middle school, high school, I remember when we would do the adult meetings, I might be seeing a student like once a month out in a work setting, and then we would have the meetings, and it just felt so emotionally charged to me. Like it was like when the students were in my district, they would usually stay until 22. That was kind of how it would work. But it reminded me so much of preschool. Preschool was like a very emotionally draining time because maybe parents for the first time are hearing that their child may have a disability or that they're behind in some skills from peers. And I did that for a while, and there was a lot of emotion in those meetings. And I felt like working with students who were about to graduate, it was the same type of like emotion. But then there's like all these people around the table that are like adult job coach and adult services person. And then there's a lot of people that start to become involved that are going to be like nurturing and supporting your case. It sounds like across the lifespan, but
Yes, yeah. I think our oldest client right now that we have in the company is right in low 80s. So yeah,
oh, wow.
so we do see a
Wow.
full range
Yeah.
ages, and it's awesome to see like, hey, when we're transitioning and being part of those meetings and part of that plan of like, okay, let's look at supported employment and let's collaborate
Yeah.
with your job coach and making sure that we're not seeing any maladaptive behaviors that could hinder their growth or their ability to
Yeah.
stay there.
Oh, I love that. I don't know if you ever read that article. I'm probably going to say it wrong, but it's like allowing our clients the right to like eat too many donuts and take a nap. Did you ever read that article as a
I,
BCBA
I
student?
haven't, but you are actually the second person
Okay.
recently that has discussed this.
Oh, you got to look it up. Just go on ResearchGate and put the word donut in. It might come up. But it's just the idea of like finding out what's going on with each person and like why would we hold somebody who has a disability to a higher expectation? Like some days, I want to take a nap, or some days, I'm going through every day I go through Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, but I'm getting a donut or whatever. And
Yeah.
you got to read it, especially working with adults. But it's just kind of like one of those quintessential articles. Anybody could read that article. It's open access now. It's a very old article, but it's just kind of like, let's be personalized. Let's be respectful of everybody. That's funny that somebody else mentioned it to you. Well, you got to read it now. You got to let me know.
And we deal with that all the time where it's like we are holding these individuals to such a high standard. But we don't hold ourselves to the same. One of
Right.
our job coaches, I was talking to them a couple months ago, and they're like, "Oh, this client is just dragging their feet getting back to work," and I was like, "Yeah, I think we've all had jobs like that."
Yes. Yes. You're like, oh, let me just 10 minutes on TikTok while I'm eating my lunch. I'll just be right back to that. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, that's good. Oh my gosh. Okay. You got to read that article. Let me know what you
I
think
will
of it.
definitely message you about this
Yes,
article.
please do. So one of my last questions is how can we train our staff to feel more comfortable with these types of naturalistic strategies? So you mentioned like job coaches and other clinicians that you have on your team. What does your training look like as around just accepting people, as a whole person and thinking more naturalistically?
Yeah. A big thing and where we always start, where I tell all my clinicians, is getting that buy-in. So taking time, pairing, finding out this is where I want to see the client, getting the client's buy-in. And also, I think a big thing is respecting the history with that client. So
Mhm.
where we are walking in and seeing this client for the first time and saying, hey, these are the behaviors that we're working on. is respecting, hey, they might have had years of ABA services before, and the outcome
Right.
might not have been super positive.
Right.
And they might have some level of trauma from working with these behaviors for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so seeing where that caregiver is and then building a program based on where they're at. So looking at, I always say it's kind of a throw spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks with some
Yeah.
of our adult clients,
Yeah. Right.
where we're collaborating and building out using different principles with data collection, using ACT is a big thing that we utilized so frequently with our adult-based clients,
Yep.
and training the caregivers, but of course, collaborating. I
Yeah.
think that's a word that all BCBAs use so much, which is
Yes.
amazing. But collaborating to say, hey, I can build out this great program, but if it doesn't fit for your family, for this
Mm-hmm.
environment, like I need feedback and let's find something that is going to work.
Yeah.
And I'd say collaborating, especially with our data collection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Data and collaboration. Okay. I love that. Very cool. So where can people find out more about you and your work?
Yeah. So you can find us on our website, precisiotherapyva.com. We're also on LinkedIn and as well as on Instagram, Precision Therapy VA.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, it was so nice to meet you, Lauren. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Rose. Have a great day.